And welcome back from that. We're going to continue on with his speech. So he goes on to say, the worst pandemic in over 100 years, the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression, the most compelling call for racial justice since the 60s, and the undeniable realities and threats of climate change. So the question for us is simple. Are we ready? I believe we are. We must be. All elections are important, but we know in our bones this one is more important. America is at an inflection point, a time of real peril, but of extraordinary possibilities. We can choose the path of becoming angrier, less hopeful, and more divided, and I'll stop there and say that's the way of the Democrats. They, when Trump was elected, they became angry, and which is what divided us. And then he goes on to say a path of shadow and suspicion, or we can choose a different path and together take the chance to heal, to be reborn, to unite, a path of hope and light. This is just all empty lies right here. I mean, they're the ones who become angry. They hold the grudges from the last election. It's all pitiful that they even go into any of this. I find it ridiculous. The whole racial justice topic is hard for many. It's so easy just to side with Black Lives Matter movement and feel good about yourself. The solution for Democrats is to tear apart cities and unpeaceful protests while ripping and destroying businesses apart. This is not the solution. They want to get rid of law enforcement, which has got to be the most erroneous nonsense ever. Fact, thousands of people were senselessly injured when police weren't present for Black Lives Matter protests. Fact, at least 36 people were killed in Black Lives Matter protests when cops weren't present, some of which were black people. I mean, come on, how stupid do you have to be to protest Black Lives Matter while senselessly killing a black person? It doesn't agree with looting. This is insane. The whole solution that the left has is dead. It's a dead end. I mean, do you want a president that's going to let this happen, let looting happen, and let them rip down statues? I mean, they're destroying property. They're destroying government property. They're destroying private property of citizens. They're destroying small businesses. They're destroying Targets, Walmarts. I mean, it's senseless. This is not protesting. This is rioting. So he continues here and says this is a life-changing election that will determine America's future for a very long time. He keeps saying all that, and on, how he's going to go on here to talk about COVID. So after he goes through all this is important election, he'll go to some facts. This is the first facts I've ever heard him say. And they're not even correct. 5 million Americans infected with COVID-19. More than 170,000 Americans have died. It's all true, actually. By far the worst performance of any nation on earth, which that's where it gets incorrect. More than 50 million people have filed for unemployment this year. More than 10 million people are going to lose their health insurance this year. Nearly 1 in 6 small businesses have closed this year. This president is re-elected. We know what will happen. Cases and deaths will remain far too high. And he continues on going on about that. Nothing real important in the rest of that little section. But what I have to say about that is, if we really look at it, the states and cities have they're the ones who control what happens in the cities. And so if you look at it, it's the Democratic cities and the Democratic states that have had all these unemployments and have all these losses of businesses. So the 1 in 6 small businesses that have closed, that's all in Democratic cities. Why? Because they refuse to open up. They refuse to open up and they blame it on Trump. But Trump, it's the states and the cities' decision on when they open and when they close. And if we look at examples like Florida and Texas, we see the Republican-run cities, we see that they have opened up earlier than most said they should have. They relapsed a little bit, and then they recovered, and they're good, and businesses survived, and we didn't have any problems. But it's these Democratic cities that are unwilling to open up, and it goes back to unwilling to work with Trump because they want him to look bad. It all goes back to that. And so now let's talk about what it would look like if Biden was running COVID during this time. So on January 31st, Trump bans travel to China. Now through the entire months of January and February, Biden's opinion on COVID is that there's no reason to ban travel, and most of it is just a hoax. This came directly from the Biden campaign. It wasn't until middle of March that Joe began to change these opinions. So if he was president, nothing would have closed, and there would have just been cases and more deaths. It's ridiculous. So then he goes and he talks about Obama. He says, and speaking of President Obama, because he had just mentioned him, and he talks about how, I'll read it. A man I was honored to serve alongside for 8 years as vice president. Let me take this moment to say something we don't say nearly enough. Thank you, Mr. President. You were a great president, a president our children could and did look up to. No one will say that about this current occupant of the office. Now, how wrong is all that? I mean, Obama was one of the worst presidents. We had the economic decline. We were in trillions of dollars in debt. We had unemployment at an all-time high. And the current president has had the economy on track to where it needs to be. Unemployment down to a 50-year low. I mean, this is just wrong. This is not true. So basically what I'm getting is he said that if you want, basically what he said to me is that if you want 8 more years of the country being like this, like it was under Obama, bad economy, no jobs, unemployment high, then vote for me. So that's just ridiculous. And so that concludes this part. I may do a part 2 to this one, or I may go on to something else. I don't know. We all know we were asleep by this part of it anyway. So let me know if you want a part 2. Go over to my Instagram or Twitter, and my Instagram is we.escaped with 2 D's. My Twitter is WESCAPEDD. Just let me know if y'all want a part 2 to this, if y'all enjoyed it. Thanks for listening to my first ever podcast. Hope y'all enjoyed. Hopefully they will get better and less jumbled. Just remember, escape to the left. I'm Carter Crouch, and that was We Escaped.